Sounds limit. I'm Dixon.
I'm Anthony, and today we're going to be doing a basic pen test one Vulnhub. And shout out to Dr. West for teaching us this. We really appreciate it. It was really easy to follow, and now we're going to show you guys how we can teach others how to do it. First, you might be asking what a pen test is. A pen test is a safe and legal way to test computer security. Think of it similar to breaking into a house and checking all the locks on the house to make sure they're safe, or maybe they're not and they need to be fixed. So that's what we're going to be doing today with our basic pen test. All right, now we have Dixon and Clement actually working on our Kali Linux machine. So as you can see here, we have an Oracle VirtualBox Manager to make sure that we can safely run our exploits and use our Kali Linux machine. And going into that, we have our basic pen testing one virtual machine, which is what we'll be attacking today in our basic pen test with our Kali Linux machine. And then our Kali Linux machine will be our attack machine. It's a Linux operating system that allows for penetrating systems. So Dixon, go ahead, power up that Kali Linux machine. And we're running this Kali Linux machine on Debian. And we're using Bridge Adapter for this Kali pen test. We're logged into our Kali Linux machine. So Dixon, you go ahead, right click to open a terminal. And then do Control-Shift++ to make it bigger for the people watching.
That looks good.
Yep. All right, so Clement, do you know the first step in finding and doing our basic pen test?
So our first step is to find our own IP address. So before we attack a target, we have to figure out what our IP address is, so that the target can figure out what to send, what responses to send, and it could be like a IPA or just a regular IP address.
So Dixon, go ahead and type that command in.
Make sure you get a space for it. Yeah.
Another thing we learned with Dr. West is how important it is to take your time when you're doing the commands. So Dixon found our IP address of the Kali Linux machine,
Which is that purple one, right? That is 172.20.10.10, and that will be considered as our IP address.
Alright, so now that we have our IP address, we can go on to the next step. Clement, what is our next step?
Our next step is the host discovery. This step finds which computers are online on the network. It works by asking nearby devices to identify themselves, and some of these examples are sudo rpscan -i, netdiscover, ping, and fping. So let's use the sudo rpscan.
So our command will be sudo no uppercase.
Now that we've did our host discovery, we can identify our target MAC IP address by matching the MAC address in our virtual manager basic pen test. So we go to the basic pen test thing, and that should be down there. So if you give out the numbers. So our numbers will be 080027C7EA57. MAC address, and then if you go back to Kali Linux, go back. That Q underline where you can see those numbers. That will be considered as our MAC address. So once we find that, we go to step 3, which is service enumeration, and this steps identify the exact software and version running on open ports. Knowing the version helps attackers find known weaknesses. An example of it are after that, we go to step 2, port scanning. Computers have numbered doors called ports. Port scanning, it checks which doors are open and what services are behind them. I don't even know. And some examples of it are nmap or nnap -sv. So we want to put nnap just to make sure.
after doing our nmap service enumeration scan, we see that we have 997 ports closed, but we also have 3 ports open for access. So our first port that we see is open is port 21, which is our file transfer port. And then we see our second port open is 22, which is our SSH port. And then our 80th port that is open is our HTTP port or our website port. From this basic pen test, we know that our port that we will be using to access root administration on the website is the file transfer port. So our next step would be to search the vulnerability of these software flaws. So we know the software version used on this port is ProFTPD 1.3.3C. So our next command would be searchploit ProFTPD
1.3.3C.
Alright, so now we can see the exploits available. Okay, so now we can see the exploits available on this service of the file transfer port, and we have 2 exploit titles, which would be our compromised source backdoor remote and our backdoor command execution. So for this example of pen testing, it would be best advised to use our Metasploit exploit. Our Metasploit exploit, which is our backdoor command execution. And now that we know that, we can find the vulnerability that is used to gain access through the backdoor. So our first step into gaining access to the backdoor would be entering our MSF console, which can be done by typing the command MSF console. As you can see, there are 2,547 exploits on Metasploit, so this is a very common framework to use for penetration testing in cybersecurity. All right, now that we're in our MSF console, our first step would be to use our exploit that we found. So you can do that by
using use exploit /Unix FTP/pro FTPD _133C _backdoor. So
now that we imported that command, the Metasploit console knows now that we're using that exploit for pro FTPD 133C backdoor. So our next step will be to set our rhost.
And one way we can do that is to put set rhost.
And our rhost is essentially the machine that we're attacking. So we know that the IP address we would use is the same as the IP address we found for our basic pen testing machine. So to set rhost, now that we have our rhost set, we know now that we can go into our options, so input options to check what else needs to be done. So on our exploit,
Just put options.
just options, insert. And then now we can see that our host is set, but we still need to set our L host and our L port, which is our local client port, which will be our Kali Linux machine, because that is a local client we're using to attack the basic pen testing machine. So the next step would be to set our L host to the IP address of our Kali Linux machine. So now our L host is set to the IP of our Kali Linux machine, and our next thing that we need to set is our L port. So we can input set L port. And a common one that is used for this basic pen testing machine and a lot of exploits is L port 4444. Input. Alright, so now that we have our L port set and our L host set, we can see the payloads. We can see the payloads that we can run on this exploit. So we're going to input show payloads to see all the payloads available.
Just show payloads.
Show. from doing some background research before we did our pen test, we came to the conclusion that our best payload to set would be our command Unix reverse payload. So since we know that, now we can set our payload. So we're gonna input the command set space payload. So now that our payload is set, our L port is set, our L host is set, our R host is set, and we're using an exploit Unix FTP Pro FTPD 133C backdoor, we should be able to run our exploit effectively and gain root access. So you can input the run command, enter, and we can see that it's sending the backdoor command to the target IP address, which is our basic pen testing machine. Okay, now that we see command shell session 1 open, we know that we have successfully penetrated our basic pen testing machine or our target machine. And to verify that we have root access, we're gonna input the command who am I? No spaces. Enter. And from that, we can see we have root access, which means we have access to all commands, but we can further verify this by inputting the command ls. Enter. And now these are all the commands we have. So for example, we could, in theory, transfer images into this website through media and all kinds of different stuff just by getting root access. So our last command to fully prove that we have penetrated this machine would be ID. Enter. And then now we see we have the root ID for this penetration test. So we can conclude that this system was fully compromised without authentication, which proves the vulnerability is critical and must be fixed. Clement, what do you think you have learned from doing this pen test?
I think I've learned that one thing I've learned is to find be able to find my IP address and to really know how to do basic pen testing properly with the correct instructions and the correct steps.
What about you, Dixon?
One thing I really learned is you can't really do an a pen test without your MAC address to really confirm it.
All right, so thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much to Dr. West from HSOC Cyber for taking time out of his day
To teach us and give us the opportunity to learn about cybersecurity, and we're excited for what comes ahead, and we're grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. West.
Thank you.